Oh, well, thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it.
No worries.
So, what are you mainly known for, would you say, these days?
Probably for my YouTube channel, for my
Yeah,
vocal reactions.
that's how I discovered you.
Um, yeah, so that's where most people kind of discover me. Um, but I guess I've done lots of things.
Mm,
So, but all around singing. Singing has been my
definitely.
life pretty much.
Yeah.
And whether it's been performing or YouTube or musical direction or it's all been singing really.
So, when did the YouTube channel sort of blow up then?
Really quickly. I didn't really mean for it at all. A friend of mine, yeah, it was a friend's idea. She was just like, you should do this thing. You should do reactions to songs. And I was like, that seems super tacky. I'm not doing that. That was my initial reaction. Um, and at the time, I had just finished. I just left a job, and I had been working really hard for a couple of years as a musical director. And I was like, right, what am I going to do with life now? So I was like, oh, I should build up my singing pupils, students again. And I thought, well, maybe this will advertise it a bit. So I put out a couple of videos, and in the first week, I actually got 2 new students. And I was like, great, well, let's put out some more. And just a few videos in, one of them just went viral, and that was that. And I was like, oh dear, I might have to try and make these good. That's not how it started. I just thought, oh, we'll just see what happens.
Yeah,
And
because
I had no lighting or anything.
no, well, yeah, it's a natural progression, though, isn't it? You started as an experiment and you're taking it a bit more seriously now. Have you noticed when you react to different genres that you get more views?
Oh yeah, definitely. I find, I think it's different for different people. But because I wasn't like one of the first people doing it, I think the people who were the first people doing it do well with artists like, I don't know, big artists like Ariana Grande and Beyonce. Whereas I found I get more views on artists like metal artists
Yeah, I was going to say,
or
yeah.
just anything that's really like a niche genre that has like a big following.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so also like Mexican artists or artists from the Philippines that maybe don't get recognized in the mainstream. I find that they seem to do the best. Maybe that's YouTube
Yeah.
though.
Because for me, I'm a metalhead, so which is probably
Mm-hmm.
how I discovered you in the first place. But for me, it's also as a listener, it's almost the thinking: what would it be like if I could erase my memory of my favorite music and then listen to it again for the first time? That's kind of what it feels
Yeah.
like when I watch someone like you react to it, especially someone who knows about singing. Though, like you have a completely different. Some of the other reaction videos are just music fans reacting, but you've got a sort of you're looking at it from a very specific point of view.
Yeah, definitely. And I try and make it. It's hard to get the balance right, but I try and get the balance of like entertaining and educational because I definitely
Yeah.
want to.
Well, you're a vocal coach,
Uh,
so people are there for a reason.
yeah.
They
Well,
want to
I
know
want to
what you
like.
think.
Yeah, and I want to like talk about the things that different artists are doing and actually like dig into it a little bit more. But you know, you get different reactions from different people. Sometimes people are like, "Just shut up and listen to the song,"
Yeah,
and
see,
then
I came across one the other day, and it was just a guy just going for the whole song, and he spoke a bit at the end, and I was like, I prefer it when they stop at certain bits and say, "Did you see that?" Or or if it's two of them
well,
talking to each other, I prefer getting a bit of their opinion. Or else you're just watching somebody else watching a music video.
I know, and I was like, "Well, just watch the like watch the
Yeah,
video then. If you
there's
don't
a
want me
link.
to like
There's a link
stop
here.
it,
Go and watch it.
yeah, you don't have to." Um, but then also that's YouTube. People love to, say
So have you
say
changed
whatever.
it? Have you changed it much? Did you get feedback from people? So you've made changes along the way.
I should be like, yes, definitely. I have in terms of equipment and, I've got my mic now and I have my lights and things. But I got to a point quite early on where I got all this feedback from so many people that I just felt like,
You can't please everyone.
yeah, so I just kind of did what I wanted
Yeah.
and reacted to the songs that I wanted to react to as well. Because there was a time that I was just reacting to things that people asked for, and I was like, and I I just wanted to, I don't know, if you're just reacting to the same things over and over and over, because what starts happening is you have one big video and then everyone is like, oh, react to another person, the
Yeah.
same person again. And I was like, I've already done this and I have quite a wide music taste. I'd love to kind
Yeah.
of react to anything. So eventually I just kind of gave up on that. And, you know, I kind of
So how
go
do you
back.
how do you
every
choose
and again.
now?
Just things I like.
Okay.
Just things I like. Very simple. Of course, I get so many requests,
I can imagine.
but yeah, like literally so many. But I do try and like look through, and if there's something that seems popular, I'll definitely have a listen and be like, okay, this one, the start of this seems good, and try not to listen the whole way through.
So
or I
from-
give it to my boyfriend, and say.
So
he
from a
listens to them.
vocal point of view, is metal kind of something that you weren't as familiar with?
Yeah, definitely.
So does it surprise you?
What, metal singing?
Yeah.
It didn't surprise me because I was familiar with it,
Right.
but I think I've learned a lot from it.
Mm.
I think I was, especially, to be fair, I was surprised by female metal singers, especially, because it's just such a disconnect between how they look and how they sound. But
Yeah.
but once, I don't know, now I've done a bit of like research on it and stuff, I feel like actually doing the channel has made me less, it's quite difficult to surprise me now because I've been listening to so many people and so
Yeah.
many people that I wouldn't have known otherwise.
That's
and
true,
amazing singers in different genres. Yeah, so I don't know. I'm not as surprised anymore.
So how many videos are you pumping out these days?
Well, this is going to change. This is the big thing. I'm at the moment doing 4 videos a week.
Okay.
But I'm about to go on holiday. Like, I'm taking a month off, but I am putting like a video out every week during that time.
Okay.
So,
So you've stockpiled them.
I've stockpiled them.
Okay.
Yeah. I do that anyway.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I don't get behind. Because again, something I learned early on is if you set yourself a goal of putting so many out a week, and then you can't, and then you're kind of catching up with yourself all the time.
Yeah.
So
You
always
you
have
put
a few.
unnecessary pressure on yourself, don't you?
Well, it's very easy to do that. And,
Especially when you're as busy as you are.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm hoping, my plan for September is to change the structure a little bit with the YouTube and not put quite so many reactions and try and do some other style videos as well.
Okay.
So I want to kind of play around with what I'm doing.
Yeah, because
a bit.
you also don't want to get bored with it, do you?
Yeah, well, I've been doing it for like 2 years now.
Yeah.
of
I can't.
this.
I was looking at you. What have you got? Like 454,000 subscribers now.
Yeah, a lot.
That's
It
crazy.
doesn't feel like, but it's kind of weird because like you don't really know those people, so it doesn't really feel like like anything. I don't know. Before I started, you see people who are like with that amount of subscribers, and you think that like they're living some sort of lifestyle that is different than what I am actually living, but it's just very, very normal.
I like your humble approach. It's good. It's the best way to be. But I don't know. The reaction thing it's literally only been the last sort of 3 or 4 years that they've been around, as far as I'm aware. But they're just everywhere now.
Yeah, it really. I think I got in kind of towards the start of it.
Did you watch many
when
other
they-
ones first?
Not really. Again, as I say, it was my friend's thing. Like, she just loved watching them.
Mm.
And she has a YouTube channel where she doesn't really do very much on anymore. But she'd done a couple, and they'd kind of. It was like her reacting to the Avengers
Right.
trailers and things like that.
Right.
And was like, "You need to do it. You need to do it." So. Yeah, I hadn't really thought about it, and I had a couple of videos that had like maybe like 8K views on there before that were like how to sing certain songs, but actually, obviously, reaction videos, because you just do it straight off the bat. It's quite an easy format to do. In terms of the amount of time on a how to sing, you have to just go through everything very slowly and bit by bit and work through it. So it is a little bit easier, but you're still kind of doing a similar thing. And I feel like it's a bit more entertaining, so people have a bit of... it's good that if you can make something educational fun as well.
Edutainment.
Edutainment. I like it.
So,
Yeah.
Have you had any copyright issues with this music that you have on your channel that you're watching?
Yeah, you know what? It's actually getting a little bit worse recently, and I don't know if it's coronavirus and companies now being like, don't react to this. So it used to be kind of okay, and early on, I actually had quite a few that were fine. I mean, in terms of if I had the money that I would have made if they weren't copyrighted and it wasn't, or even the shared money, because actually that's what I think would be fair if it was like a shared 50-50.
Yeah, the artist still gets their cut of it.
And some of them do that. So if you do a cover on YouTube, generally you can share it 50-50. But if it's one of the bigger record labels, sometimes they block it. Sometimes I've never had anything like copyright strikes, but they just tend to. You don't get any of the money from it or the AdSense.
Oh, I see. So they just take the revenue stream, the revenue aspect away from the video.
Yeah, they just take it for like themselves, of course.
It's not the end of the world. At least you still get to put your thing out there, I suppose.
Yeah, exactly. So it is. Yeah, a little bit. In blocked videos, I've had a few problems with that, but
there's
there's the odd one every now and again.
There's a channel that I watch called Alex Hefner. He's one of the bigger popular ones.
Yeah.
Some of the videos that he puts up, like he has a square in the bottom corner where the video's playing, but certain videos he has to put a thing at the beginning and say, I got contacted by the record label, say I can't play the video, so he just has a still from the video. So that's
really?
how he gets around it. But yeah, it's strange. It is certain. It depends on the record label. Some of them are very particular, and some of them are just. They should be able to work together to just make it work for everyone.
Yeah, well, that's what I was saying. I think that it should be shared. It would be much better. And then obviously, you're putting something on top of it. And also for some artists as well, like there are some artists who've had so many reaction videos made about them that they have the band have grown because of that.
Yeah, like they embrace it. I've seen some bands share it on their socials, saying, "Look at this person reacting to our music." I think it's great.
Yeah, but I've had it before. Yeah. And often though the bands are kind of fine with it. So I'll have a band share it, but their label still be like block it.
Oh,
and that's where the problems are as well.
That's the typical of the music industry today, isn't it? So as well as a vocal coach and reaction videos, you've now started a podcast.
Yes.
Just to add more into the mix. So it's called Good Job.
Yeah.
So what was the idea behind that?
I guess because everything about my YouTube channel was about listening to different singers and working out what's unique about their voice or the unique techniques that they use to create their sound. So it just seems like a natural progression to want to talk to different artists and actually find out, because obviously there's more to people than just their voices, and everything in their life has informed their voice. So I just wanted to talk to them and see what they had to say, really, and how they came to be who they are.
Yeah, that's kind of why I started this as well. Same thing. I started off music industry based, but now I just talk to anybody. Sort of diversify, because a lot of the times I was speaking to artists, and as we got going 2 years, I was having some similar conversations. So I thought, and I was getting approaches from people outside of the industry. So I thought, well, I might as well diversify. It's good for the listener. It's good for me. So.
Yeah. Who's your favorite? Have you had like a really interesting guest? Who'd be your favorite guest?
I had the one of the lawyers from Glastonbury Festival on a couple of years ago, entertainment lawyer, and that was very interesting. Because
what was he saying?
All the stuff about just how hard it is to get just to get it on TV, like the highlights. It's so complicated. All the various record labels and who owns the publishing, who owns the trademark, who owns the copyright, who owns the master recordings, who's going to own this recording once it's done. Oh, it's so difficult. Like it's such a complicated job, and I'd never even thought of that.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's why copyright on YouTube is a bit of a minefield anyway, as well.
Yeah.
If it's got all those layers.
That's it, yeah. So what do you love doing the most?
Teaching.
Yeah, so you actually being a vocal coach. So how's lockdown affected what you do? Are you just all remote now?
It's all remote now, but actually because of YouTube, I'm so lucky compared to I guess most coaches, because one of the things is with singing, because you're pushing air out of your lungs at a more rapid rate. If you have coronavirus, you're more likely to spread it. So everyone's been like, no singing at all in person.
Yeah.
So like choirs and stuff aren't allowed and things like that. Or also that's the reason why like stage shows are being held back from being on with singing musicals. So they were talking about talking about doing musicals that are just plays and things. But for me, it's actually been so busy. So busy. I think everyone's at home or have been furloughed and been like, you know what? I'm going to go back to singing lessons. And because I've already set everything up online, it's been a really, really easy transition. And the people that I have from London, it's been very, very easy to switch over to online. So I know a lot of vocal coaches who are like, I don't know how to do this, because there are challenges that come along with Zoom lessons. But once you understand it, it works.
So are you based still living in Scotland, or have you moved to London?
I moved to London, like 10 years ago.
Oh, wow.
So I've been in London. Do
you still go up to Scotland quite often, though?
Well, I am actually going in August, but maybe like every 6 months.
Okay.
So not that often, but I certainly would have liked to have been more recently, but obviously we've all been a bit stuck.
Yeah. Whereabouts in Scotland are you from?
Perth.
Okay. Nice.
Where are you from?
I'm from Newcastle originally, but I live in Cumbria now, in the northwest.
Oh, nice. It's pretty around there.
Yeah, beautiful.
Yeah. Different than London. London's a little built up.
So I noticed with your podcast, you've started getting people in the studio again now. Or have you always had people in the studio?
The people were in the studio before, so the ones in the studio have just been released now, but I actually did them before coronavirus times.
Right. Because I was watching it going, she's managed to get people in the studio. That's impressive.
Yeah, no, not right now. Everything that's been done recently, so some of them were just done earlier in the year, so
right.
January time.
Because I was in a similar situation where I do mine all in a studio. I never used to do any of these remotely because I always had mixed results, and obviously you can't beat, as you know, in-person conversation. But this has been, like you said, it's been a learning experience, and it's been, now that I've got the setup the way it is, it's been a lot better than I thought it was going to be. But I just can't wait to get back in the studio.
Yeah. Well, you say that, a helicopter has just gone overhead, so you'll have that in the audio. That's your mixed results right there. I can hear it super loud.
So have you got much planned, like, in the future, project-wise, or...?
Yeah, well, as I say, I'm taking this month off, which I am really, really excited about. I think one of the things that has been difficult, but also I'm a person, as you say, I do a lot, and I get excited about a thing and I throw myself into it, and then I'm suddenly like, well, this is a lot. How do I cope with that? And so I'm just looking forward to giving myself that break. I did it at the same time last year as well.
It's very important.
And and just go and see family, and right now as well I haven't been able to, because we've been in lockdown, catch up with many friends and things, so all the usual life things, and so my main focus right now is chilling out, like.
Well, yeah, sounds like quite a rare thing for you.
Yeah. I'm definitely a person who keeps life quite full, but it is really important, because I always feel like sometimes it's easy to get to the stage where you don't feel like you're doing any of the things to the best of your ability, because you're kind of so...
You're splitting your time too much.
Yeah.
It's like life balance, work-life balance, isn't it? It's just as important as anything else. Because you don't want all the different things you do, you don't want any of them to become stagnant or unenjoyable.
Yeah. And it's important to kind of change things up, and this is why I want to try and put some different videos into the YouTube channel, and even stuff that I've wanted to do for a long time, like do more singing videos. People, they seem to do well on the channel, and I really enjoy doing them. But those things that just take a little bit of time and practice, and when I'm teaching and doing the podcast and doing this, I'm like, I don't have any time to practice a song.
I was looking at your videos before. What I like, a good idea that you've had is to just the ones where you're just chatting, where you answer specific questions like, can anyone sing?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
as the title of the video, I thought that's a great idea because that's a lot of what people are going to be searching for.
Yeah. Well, that's the sort of thing I'd like to do a few more videos like that. If you have any ideas, let me know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I definitely want to do more like that, and I would like to make them a little bit better quality in terms of putting in different shots and things like that. But all those things just take time, and so that's one of the reasons I want to like cut down the reaction videos, keep them going, but
Yeah.
then have give myself a little bit of space so that I have time to I don't know, do other things that do take more time in the editing process and things like that.
So have you been getting, even though you've been busy, have you been had much time to just relax? Have you just schedule that into your?
You know what? It wasn't until this year. It was the first time in my life, which people will be shocked and horrified at, but I scheduled a Sunday off. So like I never have had
Big event.
an entire weekend. It was. This whole year has been like the most chill because I've had my Sunday. I
Oh, that's funny.
it is.
I'm sure people who know you will be laughing at that right now.
Yeah. I said to my friends after September, I might try and take a weekend, and they're like, "No,
Something will come up.
Yeah, you'll get excited about something and be like, "I'm just going to put this in on Saturdays," and I was like, "Well, we'll see." Anyway, I've taken my teaching off Saturdays because normally it's a teaching day, so
Okay.
we'll see. I'm sure I'll find something to do.
So you said 10 years ago when you moved to London. Mm-hmm. So what was was that mainly just for work? You just thought I need to be in London.
Yeah, well, I kind of went back and forth, but I actually came down here to study originally. I studied musical theatre, and then I was actually on tour with a musical for a year, just over a year. So I was nowhere. I was everywhere and nowhere, just all around the UK. And then the show went into London, so I did the show in London for a bit. And then after that, I went back to Scotland for a bit. So I've kind of been back and forth, living the kind of musical theatre actor's life before then. And then eventually, maybe 6 years ago, I was like, right, I'm going to fully... I stepped back from performing and was like, actually, I'm fully going to just teach. Because I was always kind of doing that as well. But
You got the most enjoyment out of that.
yeah, I just decided that I didn't really enjoy the touring life, and I felt like I only wanted to do like the best, most fun jobs, and I felt like so many people wanted other jobs that it was kind of, I don't know, it felt kind of rude to be so picky about them and be like, I only want to do this. And actually, when I started teaching more, I was like, there was nothing better than that, which is kind of weird. I guess so many people are like, think that a lot of teachers do it because they can't perform, I guess. And maybe a lot of people do.
What's that saying? If you can't teach, sort of thing. But that doesn't always work, does it? That's not. Some people just want to teach.
Yeah, exactly. I
mean, the results you get.
The
results that you get, like you must get huge enjoyment when you see someone going from leaps and bounds and like singing really well and getting recording deals or putting an album out or something like that you've helped them do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think there's absolutely nothing better than, especially when you've taught people, like, I think a lot of the younger people or the teenagers, and then you see them and they go into the drama school that they want to get, or auditioning for different roles and shows and things like that, and those things are really nice to see. Kind of seeing people start to live out their dreams is really, really nice, and it's better almost than me getting a role in a show.
Yeah. Did I see, were you in Holby City?
Oh, I did an episode.
I just saw that. I was scrolling and I was like, how did that come about then?
Yeah, just when I was doing acting back early on in the days. Just when I was performing and had an agent at the time and had an audition for that. And I had to give birth on it, which was interesting.
What a role! What were your lines?
It literally was, and it was really embarrassing because I had to just sit with like in this car. I was giving birth in a car.
Oh, lovely.
And yeah, and they wanted the shot through the sunroof of me screaming, and so they had all these people walking around me. I had to like sit there with my legs open, everyone staring into my crotch while a man pretends to deliver this fake baby. Oh, it's the most embarrassing thing. But you're like, but I'm acting. It's fine. It's fine. And then afterwards, you're like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if that was the best.
I'd rather teach.
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah.
So, what is some? Have you got any stories of your most rewarding sort of pupils that you've had that you can think of?
I've actually got people right now who, when they first came in, were so shy. Their first, like, honestly, would be like, I'd be like, sing a scale, ma ma ma. And they were like, ma ma ma, like literally like that. And I was like, no, I can hear. You can sing. You can sing. And this person is an actor. 2 years later, now he is auditioning. I can't tell you what show because it's a big secret. But he's in the final round for a really big West End show, and it's just quite amazing to see from super quiet mouse.
A lot of it's confidence, isn't it? It's a confidence thing, just to get started.
Yeah, and people get told things like, someone have said to them at some point, like, you sound bad, and a lot of the time, if you sound bad, you can fix it,
Yeah.
But people don't understand that.
Yeah, they think, oh, I'm stuck with this.
Yeah, I think people feel like they're stuck with their voice, the voice that they were born with, but it's really not the case. And even, you hear young kids who are good singers, a lot of the time they're just kids who sing a lot, and that's why they're good. They just practice without, even if they're doing it kind of by mistake. And, you do get the odd kid who you're like, I don't understand where this comes from.
Just natural.
Yeah.
That's cool.
But generally, most people learn it, even the greats.
Yeah.
Even the greats. And it's easy to forget. I guess the X Factor world makes people think you're just plucked out of obscurity and you're just born with these voices, but also you don't know the story of these people. I mean, you hear normally a unconnected story to their voice, but like you don't hear the story of how they learn to sing either.
Well, X Factor's weird because a lot of times they win it or they come second or whatever, but then they do something and then you never hear them again.
Yeah. Well, they end up in a musical normally. There's lots of musicals with X Factor stars.
I don't know. It's mixed messages with X Factor. What do you think of it?
I mean, I don't tend to watch it or anything. I think especially with X Factor, there's a lot of like difficult contracts in it, as far as I know, in terms of who owns the songs you write and things like that. So I don't know if it's always the smartest move in terms of contracts and who owns everything you've created. I think that. I guess I come from the school of thought that it's maybe better to like take your time and work your way up in the industry and go for longevity rather than like quick fame. But it obviously works for a few people.
It's probably best for some people to go through it, do well, don't win it, and then you've just all you've done is raised your profile and the ball's still in your court.
Yeah, and there's things like record labels as well, who people will already be signed to a record label and be put on X Factor.
That's
and
true.
They'll go through so that they just get that profile and then they can market them.
To be honest, I'm still surprised it's still as popular as it is. I thought the novelty would have worn off by now.
Yeah, I don't know.
Not that I watch it, but I watched it like when it first started, just out of like, what the hell is this? But after a couple of years, I was like, no.
Yeah. I guess it can give people like that first step on the ladder because it is really, really hard, and it's like to go and like slog and do gigs in London and no one's listening to you or, anywhere. That can be really soul destroying. So it can give you that step up, of course, but it isn't right for everyone.
No. Do you still write your own music? Will you be doing anything like that?
I don't have time.
Have you in the past?
I have, yeah.
Yeah. So is there stuff out there now that people could get?
don't think so. I think I've hidden it. There's probably like one thing on SoundCloud. It's probably under like Beth Roars, if anyone does want to listen.
Okay. Do you think that's something you may do one day, like put out like a solo album or something, or just even not just online, put out some songs?
Well, I think I don't know. You never know with my life. I'll probably decide to at some point.
Do you play guitar as well?
Piano.
Piano. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, there's always a possibility of something like that. I love doing jazz things. I do a lot of jazz, but I also like, actually what I used to do was more like, I don't even know what style. Kind of a weird jazzy version of like Scandinavian pop, I would say.
Right.
You're like, oh, it sounds horrible. Sounds horrible.
I looked at some of the stuff that you put on. You put some stuff on YouTube, though, don't you? Covers that you've done, versions of things. They're always a different take on a traditional song.
Yeah, I've done some like jazzy covers on songs, and I've done a couple of musical theatre songs as well.
What was the version of was it Radiohead's "Creep" that you did?
Yes.
That was cool. I was listening to that just before. That was really cool.
Ah, thank you. Well, it was arranged. I don't know if you've heard Postmodern Jukebox.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's basically like their version. I changed the vocals a bit and stuff, but the accompaniment is them.
That's cool. So with the podcast, are you keeping that? Have you got a set routine for that as well now?
Well, we're doing it in seasons, so it's a little bit of a break.
Yeah.
So it's kind of weekly up until the end of the season, and then.
How long do you do a season for? Or does it just depend?
It has kind of depended on different things. This is just the second season.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, I don't even know, let me count in my head, I think it's like 12 or something.
Right.
Depends who says they want to do it, and then we're like, great, we have a decent amount of people.
I was going to say, how are you getting your guests at the moment then?
Just email people.
Yeah.
Nothing exciting. Sometimes there's a few people who have been friends or people I know, and then some people that I've just emailed. Actually, a few have come out of doing a reaction, and then that artist has shared it and been like, oh, this person's done a reaction, and I've been like, oh, cool, come on the podcast.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, I find we're coming up 4 years doing this now, and I find sometimes when you've had one guest on, that links you to another guest. Mm-hmm. That can, the longer you've been going, or and then you get to the point where you have guests back when it's been a year or two and they've done something other stuff. It's cool to continue their story. Yeah, really cool. I guess you just find people everywhere, don't you? And it's amazing that if you just email someone, you never know. Well, what's the worst that can happen? They'll say no. Fine, you just move on. If you don't ask, you don't get. Exactly. So, and people are always, especially with music artists, generally people are trying to promote things. And I think over lockdown was quite a good time as well, because people were stuck at home and like, let's just do a podcast. Everyone's become really good at Zoom. Yes. Or even families. Mm-hmm. You got grannies with their Zoom set up so they can talk to their grandkids. You say very good. My gran always is like, you just get her chin and like, where's her face? Up the nose. Yeah. She's getting better. But it's been good in that way. And some people, it's like, well, we should do this, like, especially if you've got family live far away anyway. We should do this anyway then. If we're not going to see each other in person anyway, even without lockdown, we've got this set up sorted now, so we just keep doing it. Like people having weekly family quiz nights and stuff like that. Yeah. Have you done? I take it you've done much Zooming. Yes, lots of Zooming. We have a weekly family chat with my gran, which is really nice, and kind of extended family as well, which has been interesting because I don't know all my extended family that well. So actually, it's kind of nice. Although it's everyone talking over each other, there's quite a lot. Yeah, once you get to like 3, 4, 5 people, it can get a bit. I've done that in the podcast in the studio. I think the most we had was 5 at one point, and after we did that, I was like, I don't think I ever want to have more than 2 guests. Because especially if they're not used to that situation, like if it was me, I know I'll just wait my turn. I'll wait till someone's finished. But no, everyone just wants, especially when they get excited and it's a good conversation, they just want to talk. For sure. And then there's always someone who's got like a 1.5 second delay. And it's just really... Yeah, really awkward. Like me and you now, you've got a good mic, you've got headphones on, but some people, they might be a good guest, but they're not technologically minded, or they just haven't got the gear, so they've got like their phone, which so that's another drawback of doing it remotely sometimes.
I guess that's the one good thing about interviewing musicians, because singers especially
They
tend
should
to
have a
have a good
microphone.
mic.
They should.
Yeah. So generally, in terms of mics and stuff, singers have been fairly good at recording their audio.
So with your podcasts, how do you plan normally how you're going to do long that you're going to do them for? Like half an hour or an hour, or do you edit them down? Or
Yeah, we edit them a lot.
okay.
Yeah, we just chat for. I mean, I have a set of questions that I generally kind of ask everyone within it. And then I have some that are more to do with them and their life, and to try and, I guess, find out a little bit more in depth about what they're doing. Yeah, and then we do kind of tighten it up a bit. And also, it's a lot more work in terms of we're trying to like tighten it up and tighten up the YouTube video, which takes a bit of time editing that.
Are you putting the podcast on YouTube then?
Mm-hmm. Some of them are. Some of them are having the whole episode. Some of them are like clips, and then.
Okay. Because
So
we don't do it. We don't do any editing really. Not unless someone says, "Can you cut that out?" Because in the studio,
Yeah.
I have a producer tech, so he's at the side of me, and he changes the camera when someone's talking, and he does all the technical stuff, so I can just
Oh, nice.
focus on that. But usually, quite often, we've got set now where we can just press stop. That's it done. It just goes out.
That's good. That's good. That's a
Yeah.
lot less work.
A lot of that comes from when you talk to people as you get further along and you get into more well-known people who are used to doing this sort of stuff. You feel like you don't need to edit it. They don't and ah, they don't delay. They speak well. You've done your research, so the conversation it goes quite well. So you don't need. I mean, some people are over obsessed on like editing out all the ums and the ahs and like a cough, or it's like we just like try and leave it as
You just
natural as
keep it.
possible, because that's what takes the time, editing all those
It
bits
does.
out. I used to do that in the beginning. I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. It's just not worth the time.
It is. It does take so long, and if it's an hour long or something, I mean, and if you're doing all that, it can take, I don't know, at least 5 hours for an hour.
Yeah.
I think if you're trying to like really, really be.
And it doesn't really make that much difference doing that. Unless there's an error, someone said something they shouldn't, or someone's asked you to move something out, or there was a technical glitch.
Yeah.
You don't really need to edit that much out.
I guess it has depended on like some artists. I mean, for example, we had Sinead O'Connor on.
Yeah, that was a
Quite
big
controversial.
coup.
Yeah, very cool. Very controversial person though, so we had to be a little bit nifty with the old cutting on that one, I have to admit.
Do you allow swearing on your show?
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do. Although, I do try and avoid it, especially if I'm doing like promo clips and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like I don't know why, I feel like that's a better thing to do. Just to try not to offend anyone, I guess. Not that that's ever possible. That's never ever possible. So yeah, that isn't cut out at all, really.
Yeah. So where did the
Because you
idea?
have to show. Oh,
Go on, carry on.
Oh, because you just have to show people as they truly are. That's kind of the idea of
Yeah.
it. So if there's someone who swears a lot, that's who they are.
Exactly. Yeah. You don't want to. It's more for their benefit, really. Just let them be them. Get the best out of them.
Yeah. Exactly.
But, so the other podcast's going really well. I think I've been listening since episode 3 or 4. What, you're on now 22? I think you just did.
Yeah, maybe.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, May's one.
So are you looking to go back in the studio soon then? Is that going to be a
probably.
possibility?
Well,
Because it's just a short amount of people, you can social distance quite well. It's not as if you've got a big group of people.
yeah, we probably will in January and stuff. The main thing that's been quite tricky with it is that it's easier, obviously, to get guests, and you can get more exciting guests and things like that if you're via Zoom, because then I can Zoom with someone in America, and you know, I was Zooming with someone in India and someone in Afghanistan and all everywhere, but you kind of have to catch people on tour. That's the only thing.
Yeah, if you're working with musicians, it's all on schedule, isn't it?
And they're just really, really busy, and then something runs over, and you've booked the studio for this time, and then they're an hour late, and it can be a bit of a nightmare in the studio. And it's not really anyone's fault; it's just the schedule and stuff.
Yeah.
But so it is trickier in some ways in the studio. And then also actually like more cost and stuff because I have to pay for the studio and stuff. Whereas by Zoom, it's here, it's done. There's nothing really to pay for.
Yeah. So are you in charge of all your social media? Because it's quite polished these days, I've noticed, and you're quite good with your clips and your content.
Yeah, I am. It's mostly because I'm just not very good at social media. I feel like I'm not someone who like enjoys putting out like. I remember when I first did it, and my friend was like, "You need to put out more selfies," and I was like, oh. And then so I've been like trying.
I don't think that's true.
I've been trying to do selfies, like literally, because I feel like, actually, you know what? I get like more likes on a selfie than anything, and it's really, and I'm always like, why? Why don't you like this clip that I spent ages making?
I want to talk about singing.
Yeah, I don't want you to like, yeah.
It doesn't really matter as long as you're putting out your content about what you're doing. The rest, it doesn't really matter. But like you've gained fans, so people want to know what you do, what you're up to, as well as what you do. I suppose it's natural.
Yeah, I think I just find it quite. I want to have it quite separate. Like I like having my online life of like my singing, but I don't necessarily want people to like know when I'm going to the shops or like what I've had for dinner or you know.
Yeah.
It feels like a bit too intense. I don't know. Where some people are really good at that, and they are like good and they put
everything they do
everything.
Is on there. Yeah.
Yeah, and also they're like really entertaining with it as well.
Yeah.
I think I'd just be super boring. I'd be like, right, well, here's a piece of salad.
To be honest, I'm the same. I've reduced what my output. I only put something out if I've got something to say or if I'm doing something. That's become my normal now. So people just get used to it. Like. Don't force yourself to have to put out content all the time because I feel like you're putting yourself under unnecessary pressure there.
Wow.
You might start doing stuff just for your socials. Then I would never want to get in that situation.
Yeah.
You don't need to do that because you're busy enough anyway. You've got plenty of stuff that you can put out.
I do that enough with my YouTube, so I don't need to do it on my Instagram or whatever.
So YouTube's probably where your main, or you get the most consumption, I suppose. Would you say?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
for sure. And that's the most people. And then, because even my podcast, I think that it gets a fair share of listens on YouTube. Like people listen on YouTube.
Yeah, well, there's different. People just like to watch them, and some people like to listen to them. It's quite a separate audience, really.
Mhm. And with YouTube, I guess that's where most people found me first.
Yeah. So they're interested in anything else that you do. I mean, the podcast's always going to have legs because it's. I can't see podcasting going away. I think it might sort of replace radio long term.
Probably.
Because it's more. On demand and free.
Yeah, and you can pick what you want more as well.
Yeah, like when you turn a radio
Netflix
station on,
and
you're like, this person's going to choose a song for me. That's kind of that feels like outdated now. Where I could just put Spotify on and put on anything I want to put on.
Yeah, and the same as picking like Netflix and being like, I want to watch that TV show instead of like, I remember being younger and like you just put on BBC, hope for the best,
or
see
like,
what turns up.
Or I don't know if you're old enough to remember, but like back in the day when if you like watching MTV, you have to wait for a music video to come on, and that was the only way you were going to see it if they put it on.
Yes. Yeah.
That is crazy now. Like having to stay in for your TV program.
Yes.
Well, Friday night, I can't go out. My program's on.
Yeah. And you have the 4 channels. We have 4 channels, and we just flick between the 4 to see which one.
Yeah,
like,
in America.
Nothing on BBC.
In America, they were going 88, 92, 77. We're going 4. If you're lucky, 5.
Yeah. If you don't live in Perthshire, where I come from, because we didn't get any signal for anything. I was the person who had to stand on top of the car with my phone to try and get phone signal in the garden.
Oh dear.
Trying to text my friends, like.
Yeah, we're all doing that, sticking out the window trying to get a signal. Send.
Yeah. Back in the day, and now everyone's like, like you go into a tunnel there, you don't get as much 4G. Everyone's.
Can you imagine lockdown back
days.
then? It would be how much different it would be.
Yeah, it would be so much more isolating.
It would be grim.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you literally couldn't go outside and you didn't have the internet. I don't know what you'd do. There's only especially for 3 months.
Yeah. How did you find lockdown?
Not too bad. I've still been able to do podcasting, thank God. Which always keeps me busy. I'm always researching guests and booking guests in advance. We're going to a new studio in September, October, whenever we're allowed to. So I'm just trying to organise getting guests for that well in advance. Because usually in the old studio, I had guests like a year in advance. So I would always know, especially like you say, some of the musicians. So next year I'd know they're on tour, so I'd get in there, get them booked.
Yeah.
We have a venue in Carlisle called the Brickyard. So if someone was playing there, I'd sort of tie it in with that because I know the guys at the venue. So,
Right.
but yeah, so it's just that, and I've just been gardening, walking the dog.
Oh, nice.
More time just to do all those jobs that you've been putting off because you've been too busy. That you got no excuse not to do them now.
Well, it's just been the opposite. I feel like I've had the opposite lockdown experience than everyone because everyone's been like, "Oh, I've learned a language" and things like, "Oh,
Learn to play guitar."
I've been doing yoga every day." And I'm like, I have been so busy with lessons and so busy with everything, and I think because I've got a little bit of I've got a tunnel vision. Like if I'm like, I need to get this thing done, I will just get it done.
Yeah.
But the problem is when I don't have anything like to distract me and be like, go out and do this, I will just do that thing forever. So I luckily I've got my boyfriend who's like, Beth, right, it's time to stop. You need to not work. But yeah, slight workaholic on that edge, but it's fine. It's fine now that we're out and about.
So you can imagine whatever you do with the rest of your life, you'll probably always be teaching, singing.
Yeah, I would imagine so.
If you
I
could
think
choose
it's
one thing,
always
that would probably be the one thing that you would do.
Yeah, for sure. If I had to pick the one thing, if I didn't do YouTube or anything, I mean, I feel like it's the foundation of everything that I do.
Because your YouTube video is based as your view as a vocal coach.
Yeah, and I just love it. I love teaching, and I love, as I say, seeing people grow, and even people who are who don't necessarily want to be singers. It's not always about achieving career success or things. It's sometimes seeing like someone who was super, super shy come in and suddenly come in and sing at the top of their voice and be that little bit more confident. Or someone who felt like they couldn't speak out when they're in a bunch of people. They felt like because they'd done a little performance, they suddenly felt like they could go up and talk to someone. Those people are sometimes the most rewarding as well.
Cool. That makes you realise why you do what you do.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
did you have when you came down to London? Did you really have a plan?
No.
I thought you might say that.
At that point I wanted to do musical theatre. That was my plan.
Right.
It wasn't to teach at that point. At that point I hadn't taught. I didn't think. Oh, actually, to be fair, I lie. I went when I was a teenager. I did say like I want to be a music teacher, and then I decided that I didn't. I don't really know why. At some point, and a friend of mine had got into drama school in London and was like, "You should audition." And then I auditioned and I got in, and that was like, well, that was that. Then I started doing performance, and I was very, very lucky with it that I got to work because it's hard to work as. But when I started teaching, it just felt like it was a teacher of mine actually who was like, "You should teach." I went to him to get lessons. Because at the time I had just done quite a lot of musical theatre training and was so kind of prim and proper in the way that I sung. I wanted to be able to like sing more pop and jazz, and I was starting to gig in more of that sense and wanted to like learn different styles. And he was like, "Have you ever thought about teaching?" And I was a bit like, yeah. And I had already been teaching like the odd person, but not seriously. I hadn't like learned about anatomy and all the things you need to learn to be a teacher, but yeah, and the more I got into it, the more.
Was it a difficult transition then, going from being a singer to teaching someone? Because I've had it whenever I've given a guitar lesson. It's like when you first start, you're like, "How do you do that?" I just do it. I've never actually thought about how I do this.
Yeah, I mean, at first, I think it's like anything. You know, you become a better teacher the more you do. So of course,
has teaching made you a better singer?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I've learned so much more about my voice.
You have to analyse yourself before you can teach somebody else, I guess.
Yeah, and I do try and keep up with like my technique and stuff. Like I feel like it's really important that like if someone can't do something or wants to know how to do something, that I can then show them how to do it.
Yeah.
So I really, really try hard to keep on top of things, so that I don't really lose anything and can't show them how to do a certain technique.
So if someone comes wanting to know how to do death metal screaming, you can sort them out with that.
You know what? I did do a lesson on it, but I'm not very good at it. I'd be so.
I think it's one of those things where some people have. That seems one way you can either do it or you can't. I don't know. It seems difficult to be able to transition to it because some people do it like Corey Taylor, Slipknot. He never had singing lessons. His voice just does that.
Yeah, I think you know what? It is a kind of interesting sound because a lot of like metal teachers relate it to like the sounds that we would use in like if we were cavemen to like scare away animals and make it like a really natural sound. And there is really healthy ways and good ways of doing it. So if I'm partially like, shall I try? But I know I'll just do it wrong and be like,
hurt your throat.
Here's my roar. You know, it's never
That's not the cookie monster.
Yeah, the Cookie Monster one. Yeah, it's been really fun. I actually might do a YouTube. This is something I want to do, like a YouTube video, and work with some like people who specialize in that, and just have some of like they teach me how to make all the different distortions. So I would quite like to do that one. I'm excited about that. We'll see how good it turns out. I'd really love to learn to do like Tibetan throat singing or Mongolian throat singing. But those they often say, I think it's due to the size and shape of your vocal tract that women are less likely to be able to do it. So,
okay. Interesting.
But there are women who can. So
of course.
I don't know. Maybe it isn't as impossible or isn't as a physical thing as people say. It's just traditionally a man's way of singing. So I don't know, but I'd love to try that. I want to do like a little series on trying styles that are outside of my comfort zone and seeing how I fail, and then hopefully at the end get better. Yeah.
That's cool. So is there any who's like your inspirational singers when you were growing up then? Did someone in particular make you want to sing?
I think I just always wanted to. My mum said that I have that classic like kid story where my mum was like, you sung before you could speak. Like you taught yourself to speak by singing. I sung the melody of Twinkle Twinkle Little Star and would be like na, 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 and then learned the words and then started to actually learn speaking. So I think I've just always sung. I remember like I was such a weird kid, like a really really weird kid. I would walk around and I went to this school that only had 25 people in the whole school, and there was like 5 people in my year. Right, so we had the big year. There's loads of us, right? And so you were kind of allowed to just, I guess, if I'd been at a bigger school or like probably a less rural school, they would have been like, this kid is too weird. I'm not gonna, she needs to like calm down. But I just would sing everything. So I would go around. I think I just thought I lived in a musical. So if another kid would be like annoyed at me, like 5-year-old Beth would just sing back at them. Like, what? Yes. So that was me as a child, but I grew out of that fairly quickly. I think probably other children found it a little bit weird, and I gave that up.
So when you're really good at something and you're doing well, does it get to a point where sometimes it doesn't feel like work because you love doing it so much? Yeah,
it does. But then you also have to remember that there's so much around it that is work. Like you have to do all the admin. And it's kind of finding the things that you love enough that make the things that you don't like worthwhile. Because there's always parts of the job that are not going to be great. Or, you know, to be fair, I now have someone who helps me with admin, and I have people, you know, I've got to the stage where I'm really lucky to have people help me with editing and things like that. Yes. I don't love editing. Editing is so boring to me, and I wish I liked it. I wish. But I don't.
It's just time. It's just time as well, isn't it? It's time. Mm-hmm. Time you could be better spent doing something, doing what you actually do.
Mhm. And if I had like one video to edit, I don't mind that. I quite like it. But when I suddenly have loads, I'm just like,
Videos plus a podcast.
Yeah. So I do some of it, but I try to give as much as I can to other people to deal with.
So what's next? The Beth Wells book?
I would love to do a book. You know what I want to do a book on? I want to do a book on learning how to learn.
That's an interesting concept.
Because I feel like so many people don't, especially adults, don't know how to learn. Or the biggest challenge, even with singing, but I'm sure it's with everything, is that people come in and they get in their own way. And there's just so many facets to this. I love to talk about how our anxieties get in the way of our learning experience, whatever it is, and how we can overcome it. So that's something that I'd love to research, and then talk to some learning scientists and find out a little bit more. That's something that
that sounds like a podcast as well. To be fair.
Yeah. It would be maybe I'll make the research a podcast and then put it all together in a book.
I could see you doing a book. Yeah. I mean, lots of people do books on singing, but I suppose what makes you unique is you. Same with your podcast.
Oh, thanks. I guess I also, as a teacher, I feel like I have a bit more. Some people really, really, really love the really nitty-gritty of technique, and I do think that's important for sure, and it's been important for me to learn. But the thing that really inspires me is people and how people react in different situations. And that's what I love about teaching is, as I say, seeing people's confidence change and seeing them overcome their fears, because singing is so connected to fear and your sense of self. And when you're giving a singing lesson, you're basically with someone at their most vulnerable, when they feel most scared. And then you have to teach them to do things or get them to make stupid noises, and that's not easy, you know?
You have to get them to shrug off their inhibitions as part of it, don't you?
Yeah. They have to go against a lot of the stuff, or, you know, as I say, it only takes one mean big sister to make people be quiet for the rest of their lives.
Beat the confidence out of them.
Yeah, exactly. And it's also been really interesting as well, because of YouTube, I have a set of pupils as well from all over the world at all different stages of singing. Some people who are professional singers and some people who really, really complete beginners and are learning to sing for all different reasons. And it's been really, really interesting seeing how it can impact everyone's life.
Yeah. So it's everything you do is just interesting, and you're always learning. You never stop learning. Which is quite important. No matter how successful you get or how good at you something, you should never stop learning and pushing forward.
For sure. I think that's also I
in life.
For definitely, it never ends. And you always think it's when you're 16, don't you? You think by the time I'm 20, I'll know everything. I kind of feel like.
Or when you're 15, someone's 30, you go, it's well old.
Yeah. Or you think your parents know everything at some point, and then eventually you're like, I don't know, it changes. And as you get older, you're like, the more you realize you don't know, or the more you're like,
Or they told you little white lies, like when the ice cream van plays music, he's got no ice creams left.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you do. You just, adults as a kid, you just trust what they say. You just think they know everything. So you ask them everything.
Yeah. You do.
I was always that kid. Why?
Well, yeah.
Well, if you don't ask, you don't learn.
I was too believing. I was just like, oh, okay. Anything would say something ridiculous. My dad used to tell me, I can't remember what he told me, but I just remember my mum being like, who told you that? And I'd be like, Dad? And she'd be like, so he just used to make up stupid facts, I think, and be like, this is really funny. She thinks this.
So I think you're onto a winner with the podcast as well. I think that's just going to continue to go, because it's got a lot of, you've got so many things you can take it in any direction. You can interview anyone you want. So it's completely, which is the beauty of the medium that we have now with your YouTube videos and podcasts, is you're in control of it. 10 years ago, you wouldn't have been able to do any of that.
Yeah, it's actually great. I think people poo-poo YouTube a little bit, especially. They're like, oh, and I hate actually, I suppose, the idea of someone being like, you are a YouTuber, an influencer. Those words feel
But
like,
yeah, people have to put labels on people, don't they? They have to. You are this.
yeah,
Yeah, but I'm also
but,
this.
yeah. But then I guess it's also like it's a shame that those things come with like a bad associations. I guess
Sometimes,
like
yeah,
people
but that's
who don't
people
do
who
any
don't.
work.
That's from people who are not normally involved in it, though. They don't really understand it.
Yeah, and they don't realize the work that goes behind a YouTube video. They just think someone's recording a stupid video and then they've made loads of money. But it
Yeah,
isn't
but
as
they also
simple
don't
as that.
realize how good it can be either.
Yeah.
Or
Oh,
like,
there's some great YouTube videos. There's some people I love watching. I just love like the quality of like the shots they do and just it's like
yeah,
a TV show, you know? Some
I've
people
noticed. I've noticed a lot of the younger YouTube edit a lot of like pauses. All pause. It just goes from one thought to the next. They're just so fast. Have you noticed that? They like edit out
yeah, or like
any pondering or any ums or ands. It just goes straight to the next point. So they're talking really fast at you.
yeah, I think that's just everyone not having an attention span
Yeah.
anymore, isn't it?
Yeah, we're sort of going backwards
Yeah.
in that respect.
Yeah, jump cuts and it's just like
Yeah, fast paced. It's like whoa, just let them talk. Which is
Yeah.
I prefer that about podcasts is that they just when they don't edit as much, they just let the person talk because it's a real
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah, and it's less. I guess so. I think it can be some people like really cut things down, and you're right, especially if you listen to like I don't know any of the gaming ones.
Yeah, they're
or,
probably the worst for it.
when it's really just like bam, 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 bam. But even if you watch on TV, like the difference in adverts from like 10 years ago to now,
Oh,
I
yeah.
feel like adverts now are like bright and like this thing, this thing, this thing, and there used to be
They
like
cram so many things in.
yeah. And it used to be like, here's the lovely Mr. Kipling's trumpet.
Yeah,
And-
really
and it
slow
used to-
story.
Yeah, or like the Werther's Originals ones, and you're
Oh,
like,
yeah.
oh, the granddad.
Yeah. Or that guy, the Yellow Pages one, is it J.R. Hartley? He's trying to find his own book. He's ringing up.
Oh,
No, they don't do them anymore, do they?
No, they don't have those stories. It has to be like, here's the thing.
Really impactful. I suppose it's just because it's a crowded market. You've got to try and stand out, like most things these days, isn't it?
And cut through all the noise.
Yeah. Which
Behind
is
the noise.
there you go. But that's part and parcel of it. You've just got to do what you do. Try not to worry too much about what other people are doing or saying.
Yeah, yeah. How do you find that? Do you just do what you do? Do you like ever think, should I be doing this?
A
Because
little
like to
bit.
get the balance of like learning and
Yeah,
that.
yeah. I don't mind like criticism if it's accurate, or constructive criticism. I've taken some things on board. I've changed certain things on here from people who've made valid points. Or I've upgraded the sound. Just various things. But generally, I've always, even from day one, I knew the structure. I knew what it was going to be called. I knew what the logo was going to be. I just knew what I wanted to do. So I've just stuck to that. I've changed it a little bit. Obviously, I don't just talk to. I started off just music industry because obviously I was a musician, so that's all I knew. But then I started getting people approaching me from outside of the music industry, and I was like, well, why not? Talk to everyone.
And
It's just interesting.
It is interesting. It's a guitar. I can see all the guitars behind you.
Oh yeah, yeah. Not that I'm playing much these days.
Oh, you should get better in lockdown. You got time.
Yeah, well, the podcast just takes up so much of my time, and I love doing it. I
understand.
love doing it. It's the one. This is the one thing for me that I could see me doing always.
Really?
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
just killing me not doing it in studio because I love the experience of going to the studio. It's an experience in it itself, not just for me but for the guests.
Yeah, for sure.
can't-
And it's easier to talk to someone in person. There is something that's a little less impersonal.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we were getting to the point where we would have people coming up from London and Manchester, Leeds, Liverpool, just all the way up to Cumbria, spend a couple of hours on the podcast, and then go back.
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
That's really cool.
So I didn't think that would be the case at first because we did start doing some of these initially, but we didn't have it quite down, and there was a bit of a delay. Now I've got it sorted, but I'd still always rather do the studio.
Yeah, I understand that. When do you think you'll start going back to the studio?
They've said end of September, early October, so just planning on that. Just trying to get some guests. It's difficult because until I know a date, I can't really book anybody in.
Yeah.
So it's a shame.
Yeah,
So,
I know that.
so where did you? Was it difficult for you to find? Obviously, well, it's easy to find somewhere to do your studio podcast in London.
Yeah, I mean, actually, it is fairly difficult in that, like, everything in London is really, really expensive.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the main thing. And then you've got, like, a lot of kind of dingy podcast studios, and I wanted the video to be nice and stuff as well. I felt like that was really important for the channel.
Where did you do the ones that you did?
A place called One Fine Play.
Okay.
So they're in Old Street, which is really good because it's a good like if you've got a central location, then people can generally get to you as well.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But I think since lockdown, I mean, I don't know what they're doing right now anyway because they are moving premises since lockdown, and they
Okay.
kind of. So I don't know. They were saying that once everything's back up and running, they'll probably find a new place. But so I think they're basically on hold for the time being. So I think a lot of that has thrown a lot of these sort of businesses up in the air.
Mm. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think there'll be a lot of effects, things that have changed that will stay changed. Probably some things.
Hmm
It's
Yeah,
gonna be
I think
interesting.
some things will be better for sure.
Yeah.
And some things will be, I don't know, we'll go through some growing pains to kind of find the right way to deal with it, I guess. Because I guess there's so many people losing their jobs, and I feel so lucky that I have been someone who's been able to work through this, especially as someone who's self-employed.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
so many self-employed people are not in work, especially in the entertainment industry as well. So a lot of my friends have just been unable to work and struggling to find places that they can. So people who were like working in big shows in town are now like, right, I'm gonna have to get a job working in Tesco's. Like, who would have been?
Yeah. And we're gonna have to wear masks for the foreseeable. It seems.
Hmm
Which is going to
I
be.
quite like it. I've got one with little flowers all over.
What did I see yesterday? A company selling like you can get your own face on. So even though you got a mask, it just looks the same.
That's kind of terrifying, though.
Yeah.
Like I can just imagine it, like not moving.
Yeah,
There's
you're
something
talking, but
kind
your
of-
lips are staying the same.
Yeah. I don't know if I like that.
But like music venues, when are we going to get people in a music venue crammed in? When's that going to happen again?
I don't know. And there's something so wonderful about that, isn't it? It's a shame. And
It is.
theatres and all those things are just... It's going to be a bit of time. My sisters, actually, have put together a drive-through theatre show in Scotland.
Oh wow!
So they're doing it at Scone Palace. I'm not even meant to be. I'm advertising their thing, but there we go. It's in Scone Palace. They've put together a show, and they've got local, it's a variety show because they're not allowed to have so many people on stage at the same time.
Right. Yeah.
So like basically a comedian will come on in, and they've got dancers and a magician and singers coming in doing, and everyone
That's cool.
drives in and watches, which is
I
kind of
think
cool.
that's what we're going to get a lot more of. People trying to make the most of outdoor situations. I know the weather's not always, especially not in Scotland, but but you've just got to try and make the most of it. We'll probably like drive-in cinemas and stuff. Outside cinemas and stuff like that. They'll probably become a bit more
Yeah.
prominent. People will go to them because they're not going to be able to go to an indoor one for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. And you start making new ways of meeting people. I've had lots of picnics, which I haven't done before in a long time. It reminds me of being really like young or a teenager and like drinking in the park. Like that's the thing.
But that's good though. Like that we are going to go back to simple things like that we just kind of forgot about because we were just stuck in our ways.
And we don't have to pay for everything all the time. Like I feel like we've got such we're all about money, aren't we? And it kind of makes it more just getting back to the basics of just I'm hanging out with my friends. I don't need to go and buy like some overpriced pints from this really fancy bar.
Yeah. Yeah, no,
This is London.
There's a lot to be. Yeah, there's a lot to be said. But you must have noticed that when you went down, the difference in prices and things.
Yes. Going back to Scotland, I'm like, this.
I'll get this round.
yeah, exactly. And at the moment, I'm buying a house, and I keep on looking. I haven't found. I'm looking for a house, and I keep on looking in Scotland and seeing the prices.
Don't do that.
It's
Don't do that.
Oh, it's so depressing. It's so depressing. I was like, oh, well, maybe. And I keep on being like, well, maybe I could just move like a little bit further out because it does make such a difference.
It does. It's crazy.
And my boyfriend's like, no, I need to be in London. And I'm like, but what about...
You do need to be in London, to be fair.
Yeah. But yeah, it's so cheap in Perth. But I'll find somewhere, I'm sure. It's just hard, being a country person at heart, to find somewhere with space here. And like, I
Yeah.
just feel like I want a room that's not like cramped in and things like that.
It seems
And
a
have
pretty
some
basic
lights.
request, but
It's not in London. And
No,
also, like,
no.
I was like, I really want a garden. We went to view something today, and the guy was like, right, I want to take you to some places, but they don't have gardens. And I was like, no, it's really, really a requirement. Like, I really just want an outside space that I can sit outside. And he was like, oh, what's the deal with this, like, needing a garden thing? And I... like I was asking like the most mad thing of him, to be like, I'm just looking for a house with a small garden. I just want like a little seat I can
A
sit
garden
outside.
in London? Are you insane?
Yeah.
I've seen people like convert their yards with like artificial grass. That's about as good as they can do.
You know what? I have to admit, it's not we're in rented place. We have artificial grass in our garden.
Well, sometimes
We
that's
just
all you
put
can
it
do.
there.
That's all you can do sometimes. At least you could sit out on
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. We do. It has nice borders with like plants and stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah, they do have artificial grass, which is really funny.
How long have you been at the same place for then?
We've only been here just over a year, so not very long.
Okay.
But since lockdown, basically, it was myself and my boyfriend and a friend of mine who is a comedian. But since lockdown, there's been no work for him. So he's now
Right.
left, gone back to his family. So we've got the flat and we're on like a rolling contract. And we're like, well, I guess this might be a good time to go and look for a house. So yeah, that's what we're doing. So we haven't been here, this place, that long.
Okay. Yeah, an actual house, eh? Imagine that.
I don't know, but it'll be a flat. It's the-
Needs must. But yeah, you're right. You do need like an office type room or a studio room to just do, because
Yeah.
you do it so much. You need the right surroundings.
And I don't want somewhere, because I, live and work in a space. I don't want to feel completely claustrophobic by it all. One of the things I've been thinking about is an office shed. Maybe
That
I
could
can get a
work.
garden, but I
Get
could
a
get an
shed,
office
get it all
shed.
soundproofed.
Yeah, exactly. And then you won't be annoying the neighbours.
That's
because
true.
you can imagine I'm quite an annoying neighbour.
That's funny.
Yeah, the neighbours are not so pleased by me all the time. Actually, I've got one set of neighbours on one side who actually really, really enjoy all the singing. And they're like, oh, we heard you singing this. I've got another set of neighbours, they're not so pleased.
Oh.
They're not so pleased.
Yeah, that's the one thing you can't guarantee is who your neighbours are, what they're going to be like.
No, if they appreciate my taste in music.
Do you do generally a lot of singing then, just because you like it?
Yeah, well, yeah.
You're singing all the time.
Yeah. And also, because even now I'm doing lessons, even though they're via Zoom, again, I'll be like, right, sing this. And then,
Okay, yeah.
so it's pretty constant throughout the day, if I've got a few hours of teaching in a day. So, and they'll be like, oh, it's for hours. And I'm like, yeah, I'm teaching all day.
So what do you tell people about like looking after their voice? What are some key things for that?
If it hurts, you're probably doing something wrong, is the main
Yep.
thing. But it's amazing how many people don't really get that. And also, it's the same as everything. It's your body. Just look after, you look after your body, eat well, drink water,
Sleep.
get good sleep.
Yeah. That was a learning
Yeah,
curve for me
you-
when I was in the band. Yeah, just like when we were on tour, trying not to talk too, because we were in a van and it's really loud, so you'd have to talk loudly to people. And then sometimes we were traveling for like 6 hours, and I get there, and my voice is just, it's got to the point where like I just can't talk until we get there. Especially if you're doing like gigs in a row, I find I have to
Yeah.
just stop talking.
Yeah. Sometimes you do just need to give it a rest.
Mm.
But also, I think in singing technique, the biggest mistake that people make is that they feel like the more effort they put into singing, the better it's going to sound. Whereas actually, it's the opposite. You want to get to a technique where it feels easy to sing.
Yeah.
And when it feels easy to sing, you've got it right. So people are like, even with, those aggressive metal growls and stuff, that shouldn't feel like it sounds. It shouldn't feel tense.
If you're doing
should
it
feel
if you've got the right
free.
technique, it should just work.
Yes. Exactly. And it's really counterintuitive. And I do it all the time with singing, especially if something's like a big note. You feel like, I need to push into this. You know, I was doing something the other day and I kept on trying to hit this high note and I was like, why is it not working? Sorry, neighbours. Sorry. And then I was like, oh, it's just that I'm putting too much effort in. I just need to step back and chill. And honestly, that works most of the time. And most of the time when people hurt themselves, it's because they're just pushing.
They've just overdone it. Yeah.
Yeah. And they just need to relax and let their voice do what it knows how to do.
Have you come across many people that you've taught who've just got that just natural talent? You just need to bring them out of their shell, sort of thing.
I've got a couple of kids I've got a little 8-year-old kid that I teach who honestly she's like, oh, Shazam. Like she's got this big like voice.
All right.
she's like 8, and then you're like in this little skinny thing, and it's quite funny. She sings with like complete soul.
Wow.
And then I have seen a few. You know what's really hard to get the balance of? You get people who seem to be really, really great at singing, at the technique, and people who are really good at putting across a story and the emotional side, which I rarely see people who don't need to work on one of them. So sometimes you get a talent in one or the other, and I think the people who are like the real greats are manage to combine both of those things to a certain extent.
That's cool. Like, it's sometimes for people, it's things that they haven't even thought about. Until you're sort of making them realize it's simple things like breathing.
Yeah,
that's a key thing that I'd never thought about until I started singing.
Yeah. I mean, your breathing is what makes the sound. It's the air that makes the sound. So it's really important. And you learn so many weird things about yourself. Like, oh, like I get a tense tongue, or like your jaw, or like I have one pupil who found out the other day that she just needs to put her chin down slightly. She has like shorter muscles here, so if she wants to reach a low note, she has to just slightly move her chin down.
Yeah, I found that. It does have a difference which way you... Is that not the case for everybody then?
Well, not for everyone, but it changes the length of your vocal tract.
Right.
So that's like, changing the space in your guitar, the shape and space in your guitar to boost the sound in different ways. So moving it slightly, but also if people lift up like this, the muscles at the front can tense a little bit, and everything around your neck is connected to your voice box basically. And as soon as anything around that tenses, then you're going to have a
purpose, but
Oh, I had a slow-mo, fast-mo moment on the Zoom. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I was just saying, I've seen some where some people have been doing something wrong, like they've sort of almost criticised their technique, but it sounds amazing. So, like, are they doing that on purpose, or is that just the way they sing?
I mean, I think a lot of really great artists, some people are just like not trained and are not doing it in a healthy way, and it still does sound amazing. Of course, because actually at the end of the day, no one's listening for anyone's technique. No one cares about that. They're just saying, well, that sounds cool. I'm a person who like doesn't really believe in wrong and right. I believe there's like a healthy way to sing and a non-healthy way to sing. I think like if you want to avoid things that are gonna make you unable to sing multiple gigs in a row. So, but I don't think that like saying that some sort of technique is the wrong or the right way is really helpful, because it just makes
different.
everyone like and you don't want singing robots where everyone sounds the same.
You want people to experiment as well.
Yeah, do weird things. I love that. I'm very much for like trying to maintain the things that the fingerprint of people's voices without making them sound like a robot, but maintaining the health of their voice so that they can do lots of gigs and still
that's probably the most important part of it, isn't it? Allowing them to be able to carry on doing what they want to do, but in the right way. Yeah,
for sure. And people think, especially in musical theatre, I think people think that everyone has to sing things a certain way, but even in that genre, which is quite specific, actually the people who do the best are people who sound a little bit weird, because people are like, it's that artist, I remember them.
Stand out.
Definitely. definitely in rock and pop and stuff.
Mm.
That is all more about uniqueness. It's not about singing high notes. To express yourself.
That's cool. Well, before you go, I want to turn the tables on you, and I want to ask you your questions from your podcast.
Oh gosh.
So,
Okay.
tea or coffee?
Oh, coffee.
Music or lyrics?
Music.
Cats or dogs?
Dogs.
Good answer. Creativity or logic?
Creativity.
Plane or
Job
train?
choice.
Yeah. Plane or train?
Train.
Beer or wine?
Wine.
Sweet treats or savoury snacks?
Savory snacks.
City or countryside?
Countryside.
Matching or odd socks?
Odd socks, but I'm trying to do matching.
I think I know the answer to this next one. Guitar or piano?
Piano.
Friday night in or Friday night out?
Friday night in.
Modern or vintage?
Vintage.
Black and white or Technicolor?
Technicolor.
Moose or mouse?
Oh, they're my favourite. Moose. Moose for
Good
sure.
answer. I had the idea. I wonder if she's ever thought about what her favourites of all these questions. Where did this come from?
Oh, I've had long discussions about what choosing moose or mouse means about your personality. I'm like, I think I choose a moose. Who's chosen moose on the podcast? What does that mean? What does that mean? What connects all these people?
Because it's you and you're Scottish, it just reminds me of that. There's a moose loose about this hoose. That just what it reminded me of.
Yeah, so many people think I've just said it in a like more Scottish. They're like,
More
they
Scottish,
get really
please. More Scottish.
Yeah, moose or mouse. So they're like, is this just different Scottish ways of saying mouse?
So where did you? What was the idea? What to do the questions and where did the questions come from?
We just thought it would be a fun thing in the middle to break it up, so that we could have two parts. And we're like, oh, we should just. So yeah, I don't know where it came about. I don't really know why. Those were just like general ones at the start, and then moose and mouse. I don't even know why. I think I just said it, and then I thought it was really funny, so I kept it in.
Has anyone asked you any of your own questions before?
No.
Good. Yes.
Yeah, I've never been asked.
Yeah. Because I listen to. I'm subscribed to your podcast, so after a few episodes, I'm just going. I wonder what her answers to these questions would be.
Yeah. Oh, I might do like a special where someone interviews me at some point, like a Christmas special or something, and I'll put them in. I'll
Good
be
idea.
like, yeah, heard it first on Behind the Noise.
Do you go live often? Just to talk to people?
Like
Facebook
live
Live or
stream?
Instagram or YouTube or whatever?
I do a few on my Patreon, but I don't do very many on my channel. I was doing, when I first started lockdown, I was doing live warm-ups, which were kind of cool. So no, not particularly, but mostly just for patrons. And then, yeah, I find it really overwhelming when there's like so many people, when people are just typing away, and I'm like,
You can't keep up, can you? You just gotta whatever you see. I'll answer that one because I've seen it.
Yeah, and then like you get someone who you feel like you've missed out, or just because you haven't seen it in the thing.
So Patreon's an interesting one then. So for people that don't know, it's like a subscription thing where people pay a monthly thing to support you and what you do. So what do they get? What do you give them in return then?
So at the moment they get early access to the podcast, and something I'm going to be doing actually from September, but not until then, is because I'm going to do less reactions on my channel. There will be like some extra ones on Patreon. I'm going to do a little bit extra, so it's going to be that. And as I say, like I do a live stream, like once monthly live stream as well.
Cool.
So just and also I have a scholarship fund within it. So anyone that donates to that, portion of it goes towards the scholarship fund, and that goes to like free lessons for someone.
Oh, that's a good idea.
Yeah. So and actually I'm looking right now. So it's out there. People have to send in like a video, and they can win the scholarship. So
Cool.
they get like a bunch of free lessons.
I think Patreon's good because it's like there's people are supporting you financially, but they always with that they get a closer connection to you or whoever they're following, which they would be able to get normally.
Well, it's just nice as well because I do get to like message, like I do message people and stuff like that, and that's been really nice to have. Because when on comments, it's really hard to really chat to anyone. There's so many different comments going on, whereas there it's actually like, you know, proper.
It's manageable.
You can have a bit more of a it's manageable, and you can have a bit more of a proper conversation. So there has been people on my Patreon that I've kind of got to know as people, which is
I was just going to
nice.
ask. So you've like quite good acquaintances now through your Patreon.
Yeah, I actually had someone which was sad at first but really nice now, who was in hospital for coronavirus and was on a ventilator. I was super worried because they went away for a few days because they were on a ventilator, and they came out and were fine. So I was like messaging them through that, which was interesting, but it was quite like, you know, nice that I could chat to them and see what's
It's weird
going on.
these times that we're living in now where things are happening that'll probably never happen again, you would hope.
Yeah.
But like I've been taking photos or videos of things not to put them out anywhere, just to keep. So like when I'm old, I'll be able to. I always feel like we'll talk about this, like old people now talk about the war.
Yeah.
It's the closest thing
sure.
we're going to get to this really extreme circumstances where everything changed for everybody.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, kids will be like, "Were you around when that happened?
Yeah. Do you lived through that?
You lived through coronavirus?"
To be honest, I'd take this over a war anytime.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, all we have to do is sit in our flats. It's not so bad.
What did I see? Do you know Ryan Stiles, the comedian from Who Was Line Is It Anyway?
Oh, I don't
Tall
know
Canadian
who that
guy.
is.
He on his Twitter the other day he put, "For God's sakes, people wear masks. So at some point, I'd like to go back to work."
Yeah.
I can just imagine his voice him saying that.
Yeah.
But we're gonna have to. People, I don't know. There's always people that resist things like that. But it's like, let's just get through this as quick as we can, so we can all try and get back to some normality.
Well, it's tricky as well. Like I talk to, you know, as I say, I'm talking to people all over the world all the time with teaching people. And a lot of people, like in America, it's become a real political thing as well. Like the people who wear masks and the people who don't. So like, you know, it could be a touchy subject with some of my people's like, but I don't wear a mask, or like, because it is a real political thing. And I find that really bizarre. I'm always like, it just feels like a sensible thing to do. I don't know.
But they're the type of people who it's like they're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about other people. It's like protecting you from, you might, because as we know, you might have it and not know it.
Yeah.
And if you go into a shop or something like that, surely just wear a mask.
Yeah. And also, you know, it is easy to think as, you know, and someone in an age group that it isn't really affecting so many people. It's just easy to think like, well, it's not going to affect me.
Yeah,
but
well, there is a lot of
that.
that.
It is affecting people.
It's affecting everybody.
So, it is, and there's a lot of stories going around. So it's important, I think, to wear a mask, and it is important that we kind of stay back and at home so that we can get back to a little bit more of normality sooner rather than later.
Yeah.
But I don't know. If you walk along where I live, is a kind of high street area near where I live, and even throughout the depths of lockdown, it's so busy, busy.
Yeah, it's always been going on. Some people just, I don't know, they're just ignorant or they just live in their own world.
Yeah.
I can imagine there was somewhere you would go down the street and someone would go, "What's coronavirus?" Like, I can imagine that.
Yeah.
What? Are you serious?
Yeah. Have you been living in this world, or apparently not? No. It is mad how busy it is. I guess as well, there's got to be a balance because it can be like overwhelming with the amount of bad news, especially when it first started and it was all the time. So it's getting that balance of being like, I'm not going to watch everything about it because, you know,
you'd be watching it forever.
Yeah, there's just so much. And then so many different things because no one really knows really everything about it. So they're like, oh...
Yeah,
maybe
one day
we'll
you hear
have
something, and then the next day you hear
then...
contradictory to what you just heard before. So you don't know.
And it'll be on the same news channel or whatever.
Yeah.
Exactly. So no one really knows, and no one knows like the future of it. So it can be just you have to give yourself a break from it, but then also you do need to know a little bit about what's going on and you know what you should be doing or where you should be wearing your mask and where it's appropriate not to be and things like that. I think it's important to be a bit clued up on those things.
So how good are you on your social media in terms of like your phone? Are you the type of person who's like stuck to your phone too much, or?
I go through stages. I had on my phone. I had this homescape thing, which is like you build a little house,
Right.
by bursting these bubbles, and I was like, this has got out of hand. I need to get rid of it. So,
Are you a scroller?
I can be, but I don't think I'm too bad. I like try and keep off it. I say that someone's probably like, my friends will probably be like, no, she's on it all the time. I'm actually really bad at like texting and things like that. I find I'm not very good. I would prefer to like call someone.
Yeah, I'm the same.
Yeah, so people will be. I'm not in like many WhatsApp groups and things like that, and people will be like writing those messages, and I tend to ignore it a little bit. I'm not very.
But you're too busy
Yeah.
anyway. Far too busy.
Yeah, yeah. I just use it. If I feel like it should be used for like information, like right, we're going to meet up this place and there, and then I'm just like, I feel like also people think I'm really mean on messages because I just get a bit like, oh, I'll meet you here. And I was like, if you could hear the tone of my voice, it's not an angry message.
So that's where emojis come in, isn't it? You put a smiley face at the end to show I'm happy.
Yeah. I'm happy.
Because it's sometimes like sarcasm or happiness or sadness, you can't quite get that through it in just text. It just doesn't come through. So
Yeah.
I think that's why emojis
For
were
sure.
probably invented.
Yeah, for sure. Or maybe one day they'll just have like well, they kind of do, don't they? The emojis that look like your face.
Oh yeah. Facebook. I think Facebook have started doing like a caricature of yourself,
Yeah.
so you can
if
react
you
as
an
yourself. I was like, it's getting weird.
Yeah.
It kind of scares
Maybe
me all
they'll-
this the way social media and technology is going in that respect.
Yeah. I can see that. Have you seen like read anything up on like AI stuff? That's all terrifying.
Yeah, like not far away from being able to like read your thought or transfer thoughts onto like a computer chip, or
Oh, that's
put-
too much.
put like a chip into your skin where like a Fitbit but in your skin, so it's always there.
Yeah. No,
Actually,
but that's horrible.
I think it's on Netflix. I saw a film the other day. It was weird, called The Circle, with
Uh-huh.
Emma Watson out of Harry Potter,
Right.
about this like inbuilt community on the edge of a city where
Mm-hmm.
she went to work, but then found it was really like when you get there, they put a chip in you, and you had to go live on your like your social media all the time, and there was cameras everywhere you went, and they knew everything, and they had like a social rank where you ranked in the community, and then like she would go home and like disconnect from it, and her parents would go, "You need to get out of there." It was quite interesting. It was
Yeah.
quite interesting the way it sort of unravelled. It had Tom Hanks in it as well. Yeah, it's worth a watch. It's called The Circle.
Maybe we'll end up like that. It's all a bit. Who knows?
Yeah, and there was parts of it where I was like, well, that's just like now.
Yeah. Don't you think it's so interesting? I feel like we live in such an interesting time, and I feel kind of lucky to also be of the generation. Like I was, when my parents got their computer, we were the first people in the village to get a computer, and everyone, like people would come to our house and play on the computer. And I remember it had like a black screen where you could like, it had this like tennis thing where you'd have the little bats on each side.
Back and forth. Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And then life has just changed so much. It's such
In such a
mad
short
time to be
in like
alive.
the last 25 years, it's just
Yeah.
completely different.
Yeah. And can you imagine, like, I remember also the opposite of like not having, everyone had their Nokia phone, like the one that you could play Snake on, and I didn't have one, and I was like, I just want to play Snake on my phone.
It's not
And
allowed to
now,
ask.
Yeah. And now we just can't be without our iPhones.
Just
It's
like
such a different
stuck
world.
to you. I'm
But imagine.
really trying to like not like I turn it on silent most of the time, so it's not making noises that's drawing me to it if I'm doing something else. That's
It's so easy to. As soon as you hear a noise, though,
I
you
know.
want to, don't you?
Well, you must have that. Well, like with me as well, with business things. If you're waiting for something, an email or something, it's kind of hard not to. Is that email that I've been waiting for, or is that whatever? But other than that,
Yeah.
trying not to just like not I've really got past the point of just picking up Facebook or something and just scrolling, just for no reason. I've seen friends, I'm like, what are you doing? And they're just going, I'm just scrolling. I'm like, what is scrolling? Why are we scrolling? You're not
Just
taking anything in.
Pictures.
You're taking none of it in.
Just pretty colors.
It's weird. It's like how who's made us like this?
Yeah, well, it's like the dopamine in our brain, isn't it? Like once the shiny, all those colors.
Yeah, if you've got a dopamine deficiency, you've got no chance.
Yeah. It is. That's why that game is so great. You get to build your colourful house. It's got those little colourful bubbles that I'm like, ching, ching.
It's like, do you ever play The Sims?
Yes.
It's kind of like that.
Yes. Yeah. That was something I used to love when I was younger as well, playing on Sims.
I always remember that.
My sister does it still. And then you're like, same with that thing. I was like, I've spent so much time while I'm looking for my own house. I've spent so much time building this blimmin' house with these bubble pops.
Oh, that's weird. I can see the usefulness that if you need to cut off from reality to do something like that.
Yeah.
Just something different, just disconnect.
Yeah. Well, that's also why I was at first that's how I kind of allowed it in my brain. I was like, yeah, but I'm so busy and I'm quite stressed, so I'm just going to sit outside and play these bubble game. And then eventually I was like, all I'm doing is this game.
I'll meet my friends later. I've got a house to build here.
Yeah. Just still there. Someone's talking to me. I'm like, bloop, bloop, bloop.
So I take it, have you got a good social circle now? Then you're well established down in that London.
Yeah, I'd say that I've been here so long. My friends are the people that I actually studied with generally when I first moved to London. And then I feel like I've been here so long that that is my kind of social circle. But also a lot of my friends, I left when everyone went to university, and a lot of them have moved on from my hometown. So my school friends, not many people live in Perth, and to meet up, actually, Perth is not always the most convenient place.
No. London's a bit more. London, as long as you don't live in the north, London's doable.
Yeah.
It's a long.
Yeah,
Do you commute on the train usually then? If you go
into
back
London.
If you go home.
I am actually flying next time because the trains are major expensive right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you can get the train as well. The train is definitely nicer. I would actually prefer to spend longer on a train.
All right.
I was trying to work out what the best way in these times while you're allowed to get to Scotland, because I want to if it would be a better idea to go by train or a flight, but I decided as well that a flight is shorter, so
how long is a flight?
Feels like less than an hour. They say an hour, but it's always much less.
That's good. You can't really argue with that, can you?
Yeah.
What's
exactly.
What's a train like? 4 hours?
Five to
hours.
where my
I suppose on a train though, you see people doing work on the train. They use that time wisely. So there is that side of it. Whereas on a plane, you put your seatbelt on and then you take it off again because you're going to land.
Yeah, exactly. And also it's getting to the airports as well, because Edinburgh Airport is quite far from Perth. So
true. Yeah.
Get my parents to give me a lift, or
do you drive?
On the other side. I technically drive, but I have not driven since I moved to London.
Right.
So I would be terrified to do it again. It's been so long. I don't know if I can remember how to
You have
drive.
no need, like most Londoners. You don't really need to drive, have you?
No.
Public transport's spot on.
Yeah, I mean, it stops and starts whenever it feels like it. There's a lot of train issues, but yeah, I think it often takes longer to drive places than it does to go on.
Oh, around there
on the train.
That should be a YouTube video you should do. You getting back in a car for the first time.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I was such a nervous driver to begin anyway. So I think it would be it could be quite funny. I don't think I didn't drive long enough to become a good driver, so I was definitely bad at parking. So maybe we should do a video of me parking.
Yeah, I'd watch that.
Yeah.
Oh well, Beth, thanks for joining us. I really appreciate your time. I know you're very busy.
No worries.
It's been great. Hopefully sometime when I get established in the new studio, next time you're passing by, if you happen to be passing by on the train or whatever, you can come to the studio. That would be cool.
Yeah. Yeah, cool.
So, where can people catch you? What's your socials? I've got some of them here.
If you can just find me Beth Roars on Instagram and all the social media places, and that is my handle for YouTube as well. And if you'd like to know about the podcast, it's Good Job at Beth Roars. You can just search that, you'll find it.
Cheers, thank you very much.